Dear friends, I'm glad to meet you all again on Feygin Live. It is Wednesday, 1st of June, 2 minutes past 9 in Kiev and Moscow. Day 98 with Olexiy Arestovych. Olexiy, we're glad to see you here. Likewise, I'm glad to see you here too. Today has been a day of very bright statement or vivid statement of different sides of the conflict. You're scaring us here. We've got almost 150,000 watching us live. Well, they've been talking a lot, so I'm just stating what they've done. We can afford analyzing it, so let's go do it. Everybody, please subscribe to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovych. And if you're watching that in English, subscribe to the Privateer station. I also am missing 50,000 subscribers to reach 1.5 million people. If you want to, you can subscribe for a day, hit 1.5 million, and then unsubscribe tomorrow. All right, let's address what destiny-bringing decisions were made today. Let's take a quick look at the front first. So there are not too many motions throughout. According to a statement of Sergei Gaidai, the head of the Lugansk region, Russian Federation is controlling about over 90% of it. We're showing the map now. So Severodonetsk, everything is simple. A little south, we are hitting Kamyshevacha. They've been trying to cut the road to Lysychansk, still unsuccessful. They also shot one of the churches today, and 2 monks died, 2 others were wounded. As it's usual with the Russian propaganda guys, they've announced that they've taken Svetlogorsk, but again, it's just fights going on. They have not taken it, but I have to force myself to comment their statement. There was another information today that Pushilin got under the artillery shelling in Liman. Is it true or not? We don't know yet. Some people are saying, some sources are saying he's wounded, other sources are saying he's not. So that information is being checked. Let's go south. They're still trying to attack near Avdiivka, near Kurakhova. Nothing works out. Zaporozhye, not much movement there. In Kherson, our troops are continuing to push. Yeah, don't expect a super success there and cut through to Kherson or Dnipro, but the movement is there, and it is bad news for Russia. It is not a nice one for them, and what we're achieving, we're breaking the tempo of their planned offensive, and we're doing some counter-attack activities and pressing them so they cannot advance anywhere. They're just barely defending themselves. According to some data, our troops taken David's crossing. On the others, they haven't. So we'll wait for the General Command of Ukraine to release the data. They're purposely a little bit late. But our offensive activities are happening. And also the shelling of Kherson. What do you say? Oh no, you mean we shot Kherson? No. I meant Kharkiv. Are they still shelling Kharkiv up north? Yeah, they're shooting at Kharkiv and Sumy. There is still some fighting going on in the north of that region, near the border. When they tried to cut us off and entered from Belarus, they took a couple villages and we haven't taken them back yet, so there's a bit of a struggle there. Sorry, I concentrated on Severodonetsk and forgot about the north. But it's definitely worth mentioning. So the immediate threat for Severodonetsk surrounding and the cauldron there, did it increase? No, they're just trying to push us out. Blunt front attack. Problem is we let them take some of Severodonetsk, but eventually they'll push through and reach the river and reach the high bank of Lysychansk. And Lysychansk is higher, and we're shelling them. And if we get any reserves, we might as well take Severodonetsk easily back again. So, that's kind of a tactical story over there. All right, so we've talked about this. Let's talk about the next question, about the statements today. What do you think about that hassle around Germany weapons supply? And we can be smiling here. Maybe it is a reaction to your yesterday statement that you called Scholz a wonderful human, using the highest of your expletives. I think he got the message because I've seen in a few German publications links to that phrase. I don't know how true is it, but it seems like he's been reflecting to that statement today. Tell us more. I'm quite sure they're listening to us. I did not expect such a scale, but when the representatives of the top political military administration are reacting to our discussion, that's somewhat hopeful. So he made a couple statements today, which will make him an amazing human if he follows through, and a more wonderful human if he doesn't. So he said that we need to reinstate German military might. I almost fainted at this. So first of all, it means that he does acknowledge that German might is a bit fading. And second is that he really wants to recover the might of German military, maybe somewhat appealing on the internal market. He also said that they're going to provide Iris-T aerial defense for Ukraine, which is kind of something a crossbreed between Tor and Buk. It hits targets in a 40-mile radius, different targets, UAVs and planes and helicopters, anything. So we would be very happy, but we're still waiting for 100 Martyrs and Leopards that might have moved somewhere, but not to us, maybe to Greece or some other place. So their Minister of Defense in Germany said, we'd love to give them that, but we don't have any extras. So we'll be supplying them fresh ones from the factory. And when? We don't know the when yet. But since we've been waiting for a while, for about 70 days after the lower chamber vote in Germany, for Panzers and Leopards and all that. So we understand that that story may continue for a while more, unlike Germans who supplied howitzers in 7 days, 90 howitzers. So it kind of depends on Scholz, I guess, because the government is all for that decision. But there are a couple of people in the government who are who are putting their pedal on the brakes. And we only can observe and say that German people will cast their vote in the next election. We can only look at that and say that Olaf Scholz, you are not in the right. Yeah, or we can say that German citizens will gauge your performance rather soon. Because overall, we should say that Germany is really helping Ukraine. Local governments are helping, medical authorities are helping, people are helping. It's just some people in the government. So now back to a different side of the world, to Washington. It's interesting that they've been posting things in New York Times. So, Washington bloggers. Blogger Biden said today, who is also president of US, that they will supply HIMARS, MLRS systems. When is an interesting thing. They said they will. So if they supplied 90 howitzers in a week, they probably will send some HIMARS in something reasonable time frame. They said they'll give javelins, 4 helicopters, raiders, different supplies, everything that they'll make sure nothing will be used to shoot the territory of Russia. Oh, did your pistol fall on the floor? So everybody made statements in US and Europe, and then one guy in in Russia made a statement too. A representative of Minister of Foreign Affairs, he said that, these supplies can lead to direct conflict between Russia and United States. Is it aerial alert? Siren on the background? Yeah, they're probably listening to us. So I'm translating the statement of Russian representative. We're seriously pissed that America is going to supply these weapons, but there's nothing we can do. So we've been happy with American statement, and then Britain comes out and says we'll supply M70B1. It's what is falling there? Probably Russian spies. So Britain is going to supply one of the modifications of American armored Model 270 vehicle that also provides a cover, aerial cover. So Britain is not making them, so they're asking America to let them do that. But, if they promised, I suspect they will. There was another statement a couple days ago, and I wanted to double check before stating it here, but the news came through that Poland ordered about 500 of these vehicles. America has maybe 1,400 for the whole country. So 500 is a little too much for Poland. And do you think they'll share? Yeah, they probably will. I think that's the goal. So our dear enemies in Kremlin will have to digest that piece of news. And then our Prime Minister, Denis Shmyga, and Poland representative make a joint statement that amidst all the actions for simplified border control, Ukraine and Poland also signed a treaty for Poland-Ukraine Commission that will be building architecture for joint companies for producing military equipment. That is a long-term story. Today, Biden, Blinken, and some more high-ranked officials said that the war likely will continue for a number of months, so it's going to be long, and let's prepare our people for that duration. So they're preparing their people for possible losses, meaning financial, some inflation, and just brace yourselves. There'll be news about war coming for at least a few more months. And here, how to state it delicately, they demonstrated their willingness to support us long-term. NATO, United States, and that story with Poland and Ukraine is also being set for a long period, because every production that is organized in Ukraine is always under threat of cruise missile hit, because we could be building that factory for a couple of years and then 2 missiles get in and destroy everything. But hitting Poland, that's a whole other story. So that's an interesting document. Turkey also surprised us today. President Erdogan said there is a new effort happening in Syria, that they are rearranging some of the spheres of influence. Basically, they're going to advance towards Aleppo. Is it the Turkoman area? No. Well, there are some there too, but it's a different zone. This one was actually more under Russian control. And you think that is because Russia withdrew? mostly. They still have some troops, but they, for the most part, withdrew from Syria war theater. And the core of this story is that Turkey and Israel are warming up militarily to each other. So they're making agreements about, guess what they're going to do in Syria? Probably remove Assad for both. I don't think Assad will be the first target, but I think they probably would be discussing to share how to split Syria and their zones of influence. I think Israel would be happy to get rid of Iranians in Syria. And right after these meetings, the Turkey operation started. And that means one thing, that very likely before getting rid of Assad, they'll get rid of Russia. Is Russia withdrawing from Syria? Already did, yeah. They already withdrew some numbers. And due to Russians leaving that area, Israel and Turkey decided to basically two parties interested in what's happening there. They're playing their game, which seems to be pushing Russia out of Syria, so they can have an opportunity to kick Iran's butt out of Syria and then finish the whole deal with Assad. So that's another serious blow on Russian interests, a serious redistricting in the Middle East due to Ukraine army holding most of Russian army in our war theater. Okay, we have about 360,000 people watching us. We've been 17 minutes live, and as a reminder, share the links to this cast to your friends. Make sure those who need to see that. And don't forget to put your like. That is the only way to promote this show on YouTube, because otherwise they do not promote anything war-related. Tell me more. Situation with prisoners of war. Without going into the weeds, what is the situation with those who are currently on the Russian territory? It's a delicate matter, and we also had a change of person. Irina Vereshchuk was replaced by Kirill Budan, the general major from the intel services in Ukraine. If you remember, the statement from Ukraine side about the evacuation of Azovstal fighters was done under control and management of Ukrainian special services. So now we changed the person, Irina Vereshchuk, who is a civilian. She used to be military, but she's generally a civilian, onto the cadre intel officer. And I need to remind that every time there is interaction with an enemy, there are intel officers working that. Even if you're negotiating on the battlefront, there's usually a head of the intel in the detachment going out with a white flag to discuss that with the opposite side. So that is basically a sign that this guy is in charge of intel services. He knows how to achieve his goals, and he is accustomed to achieving them. So we're not going into the weeds as to the terms and details of it, but I suspect he is there to make things happen. Why am I asking this question? It is delicate, of course, but I want to say about the skepsis that I also am partial to. As an attorney who was defending political prisoners from Ukraine, Savchenko, Merov, Sushenko, the guy the person who was exchanged under Zelensky already in 2019, I saw how Moscow treats the exchange material as they treat the prisoners of war. They, for sure, are trying to gain most resources for possible blackmail. That is always their modus operandi. So for Moscow, it is not an exchange of people for people, it's an exchange of people for interests. Because they don't give a shit about people, not their own or anybody else's, but it's their holy grail to make sure they use it as blackmail. So these risks are real high in this situation, and I just hope people in Ukraine understand that, and that's how they'll form their strategy on possible return of prisoners to Ukraine territory, because the problem may become very sharp, and Moscow will for sure be trying to capitalize on that. And we hope that international organizations assisting in the process will play their role to help with the promises made. All right, let's continue. Tell me, we are interested about the conscripts, about the usual conscripts or people who are drafted in Russia this year after a brief training. They're getting deployed on the war theater. Because in Russia, my sources are telling me their military are using police help to try to catch more guys who are due to appear at the conscription centers and get drafted. So now they're doing that internal chase, trying to get all the resources they can. Usually they do not extend it far. Usually it goes till the end of May, early June. Yeah, they got extended to mid-July this year, and the question is it true that we do see some of those in Ukraine among the prisoners of war? Are they fighting? What's your theory on that, or data? They've started throwing those conscripts here onto the battlefront. We see that according to the intercepts and radio discussions. People of battalion commander discussing it actively, that their nearest resource refill is going to be coming from the conscripts, because reservists, they do come, the contractors do come, but 30 to 40% of them resign very shortly after, and also they don't really have resources to pay them, so they're discussing that conscripts cannot really refuse going in a battle because they don't know how to, and they'll use them and throw them on the front. They are going to use them here more, regardless of what the Russian military command tells. They just don't have any other resource to refill the killed forces, and you don't need to pay these draftsmen with anything. So it's a whole story about the reservists that they were trying to gather and send here. It takes an effort to gather them at each of the military districts, then they send them here and they live maybe for a week. After that, they're either dead or wounded or completely demoralized, and it's getting more and more difficult to get these reservists, because every new people coming to the draft point is asking about the destiny of the previous ones. Plus, it's all geographically related, and those people who are being called upon in those territories, they actually have friends and they see what's happening on the cemeteries. They see how many people go there in coffins. So that source is being very weak lately, and conscripts, the usual regular draft, are going to be the main source for Russian army, and they'll be dying en masse here. So you got some of them about the prisoners of war. Yeah, we got some early on. Right now we don't have much prisoners because our battles are mostly at a distance, but are you guys exchanging anyone for anyone with Russia? No, we're not. There haven't been exchanges for a while now. So you have some of the Russian prisoners of war, right? Yeah, we do. And are these the classic draftsmen who were just drafted and sent to fight? Or the ones who signed a contract, were forced to sign a contract after a year of service? No, these are the fresh ones. These are the ones who were drafted for a year and then amidst that year thrown into Ukraine. Oh, that's how somebody can end in jail, maybe, in Russia. Yeah, I'm bringing that question on purpose because if mothers of Russian soldiers are watching us, this is a sore question to them, and they can and should be pushing it uh, on their army, trying to find where the kids are. Yeah, that's the story. However, Putin and his company will be stating there will not be conscripts here. They were here, and they will be. So these are the people that you need to understand. They cannot be properly prepared because a basic soldier needs at least half a year to be prepared to some basic level. And then imagine if they're being thrown now in June into the grinder. They were drafted in April, so they maybe had 2 months. That's really not a fighting force. So another very alive question about Lukashenko, the leader of Belarus. I heard you also think that Lukashenko is maneuvering against Moscow. So some days passed. In your opinion, the risks of Belarus engagement in Ukraine, did they increase, stayed the same, or went down? No, they didn't grow. I think Lukashenko is maneuvering between pressure of Kremlin and his understanding that Russian army is not going, that Belarus army is not going to advance anywhere, and he's doing all the motions against the Russian threat. You think they're doing all this against Russians? By all the looks of it, that's what it seems to be. They will not cross the border. They will not attack Ukraine. He also said that they need to study the experience of Ukrainian army, where infantry with grenade launchers managed to stop columns of an enemy. And which tanks could Belarus expect? Definitely not Ukraine. We don't have many of those. So you think it's against Russian tanks? I suspect so. At the same time, he's stating right words, and he's showing to Russian command that he created operative command in the direction of Ukraine. But he did send a lot of emissaries out to Europe, trying to play his card and saying, let's find an agreement. Lukashenko is looking for countries in Europe to achieve certain political agreement. So those people who are thinking that Lukashenko is just a puppet of Kremlin, not exactly so. There are complicated matters between two countries. Belarus is not a simple case, and there are issues there. Imagine giving weapons to those who rebelled against him just a couple of years ago. The only way that could have happened is if there is a real critical situation happening and somebody is invading them. So guess who needs to be invading the country in order for Lukashenko to give weapons to the people who nearly toppled him a few years ago? It's definitely not Ukraine, so there's got to be a Russian trace here. So do you think we'll see Lukashenko? Once we'll ask Arestovych to talk about his situation. Oh, I'd be glad to talk about his situation. I'll be glad to talk about Belarus because I don't need to filter my words there. Here I have to, not to cause harm to our troops. Over there I can just lay it bare as it is. Alright, we are approaching 30 minutes, 40,000 people watching us. Those who did not join us yet will miss the most interesting part. Yes, they'll be condemned by the order of Minister of Defense. But we can lift this curse. All you need to do is subscribe to our channels and come tomorrow at the same time at 9 p.m. for our live cast. I also want to tell you that after the interview with Olexiy Arestovych, I'll have a realpolitik stream on my channel, and we're preparing some interesting shows for Friday, so get ready. They may be very, very interesting. And we'll try to translate those on the privateer station as well. So we did speak about Legion of Free Russia. Are they even fighting there? Oh yeah, they're actually rather successful. They got a tank. They captured a tank today. I think I saw that video. They're on the tank and they were sending a message to Putin that they'll tear his head off. They actually have some tankers amidst them, and they're back in their world. They're enjoying new equipment, and they'll use it. They'll use it well. How many of them are? Is it tens, hundreds? Well, thing is, our special services are really filtering the volunteers. So Russia is making it difficult. They're not letting people out much. We're not taking many prisoners, and basically this battalion has several sources of supply. One of them is captured prisoners of war who decide to change side. Another is Russian citizens who were emigrated by their parents, and they have their citizenship of other countries. But they did ask, they grew up in the other countries, but they do have Russian citizenship or have Russian roots, and they asked to join Russian Legion when they came. They could have joined American or English-speaking Legion, but they decided to join Russian. And then there are some Russian citizens who managed to flee Russia before the whole thing got restricted. So they are another source. And in Russia, there is actually a growing movement now. People are drawing Legion insignia on the walls, on the money, on the currency. Different scientific centers are burning, especially military ones. There are explosions in the ammunition depots. And if you talk to the leaders of that Legion, they're actually making more effort to grow Legion within Russia. So they're growing, also looking for connections with Russian opposition, active outside of the country and inside of the country. So, Mark, if you'll have any desire, you can get in touch with them. I will check it. That's curious. So here's the thing. It's harder to get to Ukraine because it is being blocked a lot on the Russian side, and they need to go out to another country to get to us. But there hasn't been a day that I didn't get tens of different photos from all different kinds of Russia where they do promote their activity and the Legion. They have their own media, they have Telegram channel, and they got their own achievements. On the front, there are several dozens of them, and they also got Ukrainian troops mixed with them, not to reveal that this is the Russian Legion, so that Russians would not concentrate their fire on this detachment if they know that that's who they are. And they just got a tank today, so hey, they're inspiring and inspired. And I like playing Devil's Advocate. I'm telling, there are several dozens here. There are maybe a couple hundred also going through the checks right now. How about your perspectives? And things are not happening. Very slow in Russia. There's a lot of pushback there. I'm trying to gauge if they'll follow and go down the tone scale when I discuss it like this. And unlike some Ukrainian soldiers who actually do go down that route and start, complaining and stuff, these people are actually in a good mood. They don't follow down the path. They got good mood. It's almost like you feel the fresh breeze coming from them. They're enjoying it and very happy to have a chance to bring their contribution to this effort. And their war segment is not an easy one. They're really in a Ashderwald place where it's pretty rough, but they're enjoying it. All right. God knows how it'll turn. We're 35 minutes almost online. We're trying to keep that frame, but we do have one message, a good one. We talked yesterday about a girl who we wanted to help, and I want to share some good news. We found her. We transferred a couple thousand euros to her account. I talked to her and to her dad. This is Instagram of Nastya Kuzik. She still has her hand. I take my words back in my mouth. She is undergoing treatment recovery in Leipzig. She got, one leg wounded, another got amputated, so we're not going into details. She actually told me we're two retirees. She's pretty young. So, she called us grandpas? Yeah, pretty much. She was surprised when I told her we have 500,000 views. I said, swear on my blood. And she was nicely impressed with our activities here. So she cannot really enjoy Germany and walk around much. She's undergoing physical rehabilitation, so she's kind of confined to the hospital and a little bored there. So if you can subscribe to her and find a way to support her morally, I don't know, send her something nice. She's from Chernihiv originally. Her father and mother are in Chernihiv. So there are good sides to that when we can actually provide a little bit of help to victims of this war. Grandpa Mark and Grandpa Alex are saying their highs. That's us. But I would say she shouldn't be so rough on the turns. I see my stats. We have a lot of young people watching us. Major bracket is 25-35 years old. It is the second group among the viewers. The first one is 35-45. So our atmosphere is rather entertaining here. Oh, come on, Grandpa Mark. We'll be one day older tomorrow. And we can speak like real grandpas. So I ask you to support Nastya. There is more information there. We see each other back again tomorrow, talk about more news. Good luck, everybody. Subscribe to our channels and to the Privateer station. Share links, and we'll see you tomorrow.